1. So this happened last night, and I'm still pretty shook up by it. I've had my fair share of creeps in real life and online, but I've never had an experience as real and scary as this one. So my friend was having a little party-type get-together thing at her boyfriend's uni house, and I was invited, but because I was working Saturday morning, I told her I'd probably be too tired to go. Anyway, I got home from work on Saturday, took a nap, and I decided I wanted to go, but I'd have to leave early because I had work Sunday morning. So I messaged my other friend who drives and saw if she wanted to go, but she said it was too far, so I ended up getting the bus. Now, I was dressed to go to a house party, so I felt a little out of place on the 7 p.m. bus, but I just put my headphones in and thought whatever. I got to the party, stayed there for a few hours and left at 10 p.m. My friend walked me to the bus stop, and there were 2 people stood there. She waited a few minutes with me, but it was freezing and she needed to pee, so I told her I'd be fine and she could go. She went, and a few minutes after, one of the men at the bus stop came and stood really close to me. He asked me if the bus coming here was a 111, and I said yes. Then he didn't move and continued to stand really close to me. He started asking me questions, but I didn't know what he was saying because he had a really strong accent. So I asked him what he was saying a few times, but he just kept smiling and mumbling. So I looked away and just ignored him. Then he called me beautiful, and I just shook my head. There was another man at the bus stop who came and stood next to me at this point. I just kept looking away, and the man started touching my arm, and I gave him a dirty look and moved away. I feel like in situations like this, everyone thinks they'd tell the person to fuck off or slap them or even run away. And previous to today, I'd probably have said that too, but I just froze. I could have gone back to my friend's house and gotten the next bus, but I wouldn't have gotten home until 1 a.m., and the Uber from where I was would have been £40, and I literally only had money for the bus. So I'm still stood there, and this man grabs my arm and leans forward to kiss me, and I move away and frown at him, and the other man tells him to leave me alone. The creepy man then goes up to the other man and gets in his face and says, "What did you say?" And I'm just stood there and thinking, if they start fighting here, I have no clue what I'm going to do. So the other man just says, "I said leave her alone." And the creepy man puts his middle finger in the other man's face. The nice man says, "Fuck you." And then the creepy man spits in his face. At this point, I run away towards my friend's house and I start having a panic attack. I have no minutes or data left on my phone, so I can't call anyone. I buy some more minutes and texts with my last £5 in my bank and start texting my friends. I couldn't call my dad because he was doing a night shift at work, and my mum goes out with her boyfriend on Saturday nights. Also, I was about an hour's drive away from my house anyway, so I wasn't expecting anyone to come pick me up. As I'm walking to my friend's house and sobbing, the bus I was waiting for comes past and stops for me. There were tons of people on it, so I got on and sat by the driver. I used the bus's Wi-Fi to text my best friend, and the friends whose house I'm at, and my best friend starts saying, "You're going to be fine, just get off somewhere busy and get a taxi home." I was really stressed out because I was getting a bus into the city at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night, and I then had to get another bus home, and I had no money for a taxi home from the city, and because it's a Saturday night, it's going to be even more expensive. So I'm telling my friend this, and the next thing I know, the creepy man comes downstairs on the bus and appears next to me. I had no idea he was on this bus, so I start crying again and texting my friend, saying, "Oh my god, he's next to me, he's next to me." The creepy man asks the bus driver if this bus is going to the city, the same question he asked me at the bus stop, and the bus driver says yes. Then other people start to get on the bus, and creepy man is in the way, so driver asks him to move. The man says okay, but doesn't move and just stands staring at me, while I cry, so the driver asks him again, and then the man sits behind me. I'm thinking and thinking what to do because I know he's going to follow me when I get off the bus. I'm still texting my friend, and she transfers me some money so I can get a taxi home from the city. First I thought I'd get off and ask a man if I can stand by him, but everywhere the bus stopped, all the men I saw were in huge groups and looked really drunk, so that scared me too. So next I'm thinking I'll get off the bus near a nightclub or bar so I can stand with the bouncers at the door. We get to the city, and a few people line up to get off the bus on a busy road. So when the doors open, I quickly jump off before them, and to my surprise, Creepy Man doesn't get off the bus. Then I walk through the busiest parts of the city, crying and crying on the phone to my best friend, and I order a taxi. Then my friend, whose party it was, rings me, and she feels really bad for leaving me at the bus stop. But I explained that he probably would have been creepy on the bus even if she stayed, and that I didn't even expect her to walk to the bus stop with me, so she was sweet for doing that. Safe to say, I'll never be getting the bus late at night again if I can help it. 2. So I am trans, female to male, and not in a safe place to transition yet, and have off days due to my anxiety, fear of people, and depression, where I just throw on whatever and try to avoid the world. I do not do dresses or skirts, show off my body, nor do anything with my hair. I don't wear makeup or dress up to draw attention to myself. I do have a very soft face, and I'm overweight, and obviously look exhausted due to lack of sleep. I'm also very short. This happened on a very off day for me, but adulting happens and I had to go to the bank. I had no one come with me, and I couldn't take my ESA to the bank because of the weather, and because they do not have the same rights as a service dog. I had taken my prescription to calm me down a little before leaving, but it only helped so much. There was an older bald guy at the bank. I thought nothing of him, and was in my own little ball of anxiety. He was tall and dressed in a nice suit. As I was waiting for the tellers to let me into the main building, he nicely pointed out the newly installed button to be let in, and I thanked him, thinking that was that. I went about my business, deposited my check, and was feeling all right. Didn't see anyone outside, and I stepped out into the ATM hallway to make a quick withdrawal. I turned around, and he was right behind me, waiting by the main exit. I could have taken the side exit or gone back in, but I thought I was being silly. Nope. Hi, my name is BG. What's your name? I'm A. Thanks for your help earlier. Bear in mind that this conversation was in French, and I have a stutter that grew worse and worse over the space of this conversation. I tend to be visibly frightened when approached. You're welcome. You're very beautiful. Can I have your number? No, thank you. I don't like to speak on the phone. I have anxiety. Come on, just give me your number. I'm sorry, I don't want to. I have an anxiety disorder. That's okay, just give me your number. This was getting too much for me. I moved to the door and he kept pressuring me to give him my number. No matter how much I apologized or tried to get out of it, he kept talking to me. Eventually I gave it to him out of pure panic to get away, but by some stroke of luck he misheard me because of my stutter. He read it back to me, asked me to repeat the number, and I went with it. He finally bid me a good day and left, reassuring me that he'd phone me at 6. At this point I thought I was home free. I didn't live far from the bank, and walked up a one-way street into an alley off the main street to try and avoid him. There were huge planters blocking traffic going up, so I thought I was safe. Just as I stepped out, I heard a car rumbling, and a large white van with tinted windows sped through. On the opposite side of the alley was another one-way street leading in the opposite direction. The van nearly collided with a car going the right way up. I had been waiting for that car to pass to get in a pedestrian-only laneway across the street, so I quickly jumped back on the sidewalk. The van honked, turned around, and pulled up in front of me, blocking my way. The tinted windows rolled down, and, "Hi, get in the car, I'll drive you home." It had begun to drizzle, but I was 2.5 blocks from home and visibly scared of him. "No thanks, I don't have far to go." "Come on, get in!" This went on and on until he seemed to grow tired of it. He left after reassuring me that he'd call me. I was wary and took the sidewalks this time, and out of the corner of my eye I saw a white car at the end of the block. I figured that he was just trying to get out of this little borough and kept walking, but it didn't make sense. I had been walking slowly, and he should have been out of the borough by then. The next block, same thing, he was still there, following me along a street, going the same way. My block was the last one you can drive down before having to turn onto a main road, but the street I was on went 1 block further. I ignored my turn. A gut feeling told me to keep going. I called my brother at the end of that block, mostly hidden by a big tree. I watched my street and asked him if the white van was there. As I was standing, his van slowly rolled into view at the intersection. If I had gone up my block, he would have seen me on my way back down the street. Somehow, he hadn't noticed me. And I stood there quietly, making sure he wasn't making another round. He didn't, and I made it home safe and sound, but very shaken up. I never received a call from him. To the weird stalker dude, let's not meet, and I hope you never figure out my real number. 3. So this happened to me last semester. I am a college student, and I've only had positive experiences, except for this encounter I had throughout the entirety of last semester. I'm a psychology major, and between taking AP classes in high school and taking a few extra classes over the summer, I'm ahead of my class. Last semester I registered for a neuroscience course, which was a bit more advanced, and all the kids in the class were either juniors or seniors about to graduate. I was a freshman at the time. On the first day of class, I made my way to the classroom, and the professor was late. There was a big crowd of people outside, and I simply asked the boy if he was waiting for the same class. He said yes. He introduced himself as Braxton, and that was that. The professor came, and class was good. At the end of the class, he asked me for my number just in case we had to discuss homework assignments and whatnot, and I thought he would be a cool connection to have. I was wrong. I saw him once a week for an hour and a half. Not even 2 weeks after I met him, only seeing him in class, he stated he felt a connection to me, and that I was the most beautiful and fascinating girl he had ever met. I ignored the connection part of it and thanked him for his compliment. That was that. The week after he mentioned this, he texted me out of nowhere asking if I had anxiety. I hesitantly said yes and kept it very broad. I told him that large crowds of people are my biggest trigger, but I managed just fine. He made it a point to tell me that if I ever needed to escape, he knew a few spots that were vacant and deserted. I told him I was fine, and he seemed to drop it. The week after we said our goodbyes, and I started walking to my next class. Usually we say goodbye and I don't see him until class 2 days later. He turned around quickly and started walking next to me. I told him that I was fine and that he could go to his own class. He said, No, it's fine. I want to walk you to math. I know people scare you. I stopped dead in my tracks and asked him how he knew I had math class after our NS class. He told me not to worry about it, and as much as I was weirded out, I ignored it. Keep in mind, I have never once told him my schedule or really any specifics about myself. He dropped me off and I felt relief thinking that was that. I brushed it off as him just trying to be a gentleman. An hour and a half later, he was waiting for me right outside of the room and then said, Let's get you to English. I lied and told him that my English class had been cancelled and alarms had gone off in my head because this kid apparently knew my schedule and where my classes were located and at what times. Although I again ignored it because I didn't want to be rude to him, and I took it as him just trying to be nice, so I forgot about it. After that incident, everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. As stated earlier, I have pretty bad anxiety, and on this particular day, I was having a pretty off day. Class started, and I grew more and more anxious and had to step out, so I did. I went to the bathroom and calmed myself down and returned quietly, only to notice that Braxton was not in his seat. He came back soon after and took his seat right behind me and immediately whispered in my ear, Don't you ever leave without my permission again. Do you understand me? I just nodded and apologized so he would stop. And then he returned back to normal. One of his few obsessions with me was that something would happen to me and that he had to protect me at all costs. If I wasn't okay, he would flip out and do anything in his power to return me to an okay state. It was odd. There were a few instances in which it got really freaky. One of these instances was the day he noticed my medical bracelet for hypoglycemia. As soon as he noticed it, he started interrogating me about why I had it, what it was, if I take medications, when was my last episode, etc. He then proceeded to grab my hand and try to snap a picture of my parents' phone number on the back. I told him it wasn't his business, and if he really needed that information one day, he would have it. On my wrist. He got upset, but dropped it. That Friday, he had called me from his job, he worked at a hospital doing office-type work, and said, Hey, I have you on speaker and I'm with one of my colleagues. I need you to explain your condition, why it happens, and give me a list of medications you take. What was your severest episode? I told him it was completely out of line and hung up on him, and he blew up my phone telling me how important it was to get help and how important it was for him to know everything about it. I ignored him. Next time I saw him, he acted normal and even apologized for his actions. We moved on until the next thing happened. I had twisted my ankle pretty badly on campus, I had been crying, and it was pretty obvious I was in pain and stressed. As soon as he had seen me, he completely flipped out, asking who did this to me, if I was okay, if I needed medications, and then demanded he was going to take me to my university's clinic. He told me I wasn't allowed to call my mother and that only he would deal with this. I told him that he didn't control me, and I ended up calling my mom, obviously, where she told me to go to the clinic and she would pick me up there. I told Braxton that we could just get an escort by campus police. The clinic was a few blocks away, and he immediately shut that down and got extremely upset. "No, we are absolutely not going to the police. I'm going to get an Uber." "But we are not going with the police. Do not even think about telling the police." This was extremely alarming to me because why did he want to stay away from the police so badly? He ended up calling an Uber and we got to the clinic. He insisted on being right by my side the entire time and wanted me to hold his hand. And he kept trying to rub my back and touch me. I told him to stop and that I didn't want him touching me and for him to just leave. He insisted on staying and there really was not much I could do, so I dealt with it until my mother came to get me. I was extremely tense and kept my hands to myself and just sat still. After I left, he followed up with multiple texts, asking if I was okay, and if I could keep him updated. I ignored all his messages. Towards the end of the semester, a mutual friend we had in that class messaged me asking if Braxton ever made me feel uncomfortable. I told her the truth and in multiple instances that I immediately got bad vibes from him, and that I progressively felt worse being near him. Not even 5 minutes after I sent the message to her, Braxton starts blowing up my phone, calling, texting, leaving voicemails. He kept threatening me, saying he was going to find me, and as soon as he finds me, that it was over for me. He said that I had ruined his life, and that he hated me, and that I was a horrible person. And he said when he sees me next, he was gonna show me what I deserved, and that I had no idea what was coming for me. His voicemails were so full of rage, his voice was so shaky because of how angry he was. And he was yelling his heart out in one voicemail, and in the next sobbing about why I didn't love him back, and how could I betray him like this. I obviously didn't go to school that day, and his hundreds of voicemails and texts alternated between rage and apologies, and every emotion in between. It was terrifying. The only reason I did not block this guy or tell anyone about him was because I was terrified he would do something to me. He would remind me that if I was scared of him now, he would give me a reason to be scared later, either if I went to the police or tried distancing myself more. He found every single one of my study spots. I'm a commuter, so I study and stay at many different coffee shops. And if I wasn't at the ones I usually studied at, he would message me saying he would find me if I didn't tell him where I was. He told me if I ever went to the police that he would give me a reason to go to the police. Things like that. He also shared with me that he would fantasize about me, and how badly he wanted me. He said he loved the way I smelled and even wanted pieces of my hair to keep at home. It was awful. At the very end of the semester, I completely stopped talking to him, and he seemed to have gotten the hint. I moved seats in class, and he didn't seem to bother me after I made it evident I wanted nothing to do with him. On the last week of semester, he started to take pictures of me from across campus, and send them to me from multiple numbers. He would say things like, "You're just gorgeous today. I love you so much. I wish you loved me back. You'll pay for this, your betrayal to me and humankind." On the very last day, I had gotten on my commuter bus, and when I was seated and on my way home, I got a text from him with a video of me getting on my bus, and he had said, "See you soon, darling." I was paranoid for weeks afterwards. Luckily, nothing had ever happened since then. He never texted me anymore, and I hadn't seen him at all after last semester. He deleted all of his social medias, and hopefully he moved away or graduated, and honestly, I hope he is far, far away. So, Mr. Study Buddy, please, let's not meet again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 450. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, I'm going to be spending this week and part of next week putting together Glitch Monthly. I forget what the next one is. I think it's number 5. I'm not really sure. I will check, obviously, before I upload it. But it's actually coming along nicely. I do need to send emails for messages, but we're already 6 in, I believe. That's responses that came after last month's video, and that's always welcome because it lets me get a jump on the next one. So I think we'll be okay with that one. What date did I say it was going up? Probably going to be the 5th of December, we'll say. Yeah, I mean, if I get it done by the 28th, I'll put it up on the 28th. But, let's say the 5th in the moment. And if it goes up earlier, then it'll be a nice little surprise. Then after that, I begin preparations to take a week off in December. The Christmassy week, obviously. I'll try and take Christmas through to just after New Year. That would be nice. It means oodles of work, but I think it'll be worth it. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.